Hello, friends and viewers. I am Ajit Kumar Jha of Power Pixar channel. Today, we are going to focus on the India alliance. I.N.D.I.A alliance is better because the last letter in it, A, starts for alliance, or we can call it the India bloc. Now, what are we going to focus on it? What are the positives and what are the shortcomings of the India alliance? We'll do what they call in management language a SWOT analysis of the India bloc. Number one, what are the positives? The most positive thing about the India bloc is the fact that they have made a multi-party competition into a two-horse race, basically. That is a very big thing in a democracy. Look at all the developed democracies in the world. Uh, if you look at US, Republican Party versus the Democratic Party, of course there are some smaller parties, but the main fight is between the Republicans and the Democrats for almost since the American history of 200 years. The same thing in Britain, the mother of all democracies, the mother of all Western democracies. Largely it used to be the Labour Party versus the Conservative Party. Of course, there was Liberal Party, and then there are few other smaller parties that have sprung up recently. But the big fight was all the prime ministers came from either this or that. I mean, there were one or two lib-lab prime ministers in the past. So similarly, what the India coalition has managed to do, it has come around Congress party. It is opposing the BJP-led N.D.A. So now what you have is, in a way, two large alliances. BJP-led N.D.A, which is the ruling alliance, and the challenger alliance is the Congress-led India coalition. So that is very, very important. Now, what does that mean? That means the distribution of votes that used to take place in one single constituency, let's say any constituency in the country, the distribution of votes, the competition of votes in the opposition would always ensure that the ruling party wins, right? For example, let's say take a constituency in Bihar. Now, in Bihar, for example, RJD was there, JDU was there, among big players. Then you had CPI, CPIM, CPIML among the communist players. Then you had other smaller parties, independents, which used to contest. And on the one side, let's say you had the BJP, although the BJP is not the dominant party in Bihar. But let's assume that that was the kind of competition, a typical multi-party competition. So what tends to happen in a multi-party competition is that the winner can even become a winner if they have barely 30% votes in a constituency. Why? Because the rest 70% is getting distributed. So the moment you form an India bloc and make the multi-party competition into a bipolar fight, what will happen is that the majority of the votes, let's say the 80%, or maybe in the 90%, or in some constituencies, maybe 100%, will only be divided between the BJP on one side and the India bloc on the other. So as a result, there is a very strong chance that the India bloc will be in a position to challenge the BJP. Now, that is a very positive for the opposition of India. This has happened for the first time. In the sense, in the past, we've had coalitions. We always had a UPA versus the N.D.A for a very, very long time, right? But the India coalition, the India bloc, is a very different entity compared to the past coalitions. In that sense, very positive message. Now let's for a moment focus on the shortcomings. I would begin by saying the India coalition should have started 5 years ago, 10 years ago, not in July of 2023. Why? Because the elections are now barely 5 months left, and the India coalition has had until now only 3 meetings. The first in Patna, that Nitish Kumar started in July, then in August, and then in August in Mumbai, and then the next one, September, Bengaluru. Now, first of all, when Nitish Kumar started it, it was not even called the India Bloc at that time. It was generally called a Mahagathbandhan against the BJP. So the name was given in Bengaluru. Some people claim that Rahul Gandhi came up with the name. Others claim that Mamata Banerjee came up with the name. Doesn't matter who came up with the name. I think it's a great brand by itself, number one. Now, what are the shortcomings? The shortcomings, number one, as I said, the formation has been very late. Secondly, you need a common minimum program, which the India Bloc is talking about forming during the 19th meeting. 19th, like barely 2 or 3 days away. So they are going to chalk out a common minimum program. Now, much more than that, what I feel very important is a common purpose. You see, still people are confused. Why? Because you have 3 communist parties in it: CPI, CPM, CPIML. Then you have a huge socialist regional bloc which stands by Mandal, Samajwadi Party, Janata Dal United in Bihar, Rashtriya Janata Dal again in Bihar, Rashtriya Lok Dal RLD in Uttar Pradesh. Now, most of these are essentially socialist parties. The former socialist parties in India, the SSP and PSP, when it broke on the issue of caste, for example. Lohia began what we call the caste orientation of socialist parties. Most of these socialist groups that I have named basically come from that origin, and their motto is the Mandal formula of the 1990s. Caste representation, caste reservation. So that is what they stand for. Okay, conceded. So you have a communist bloc, you have a socialist bloc. What are the other parties in it? Well, you have the Congress party in it to begin with, which is the principal pole in the India alliance. And many of us know what the Congress stands for. Why? Because the Congress is the oldest party in the country, formed in 1885. And it won the national movement, right? At the same time, it has produced extraordinary prime ministers: Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Dr. Manmohan Singh recently, Narasimha Rao in the past. So we kind of know what it stands for in a big way. But then there are other parties from the south. For example, the DMK. In fact, the smaller parties, various parties from Tamil Nadu are also part of it, like the MK and others. Similarly, it has Shiv Sena, which at one time used to be a part of the Shiv Sena. Now, why? Because the Shiv Sena is split, the Thackeray wing of the Shiv Sena. But remember that the Shiv Sena was at one time part of the NDA. In fact, until recently, before the last Lok Sabha polls, it was part of the NDA. So it is a very sort of, in a way, it's understood as a right-wing party. So one question might arise: what is a right-wing party doing in this so-called left-of-center alliance? So then there are several other parties, similarly regional parties from all over the country. It also has, for example, parties, Mehbooba Mufti's party PDP from Kashmir. Now, that has a very different agenda on the entire issue of Article 370. The big question would be, do the other parties stand by it or not? Similarly, so on and so forth. Now, what I would have suggested are 2 things very important. Chalking out a common purpose. In the case of BJP, the ruling party, what are the common purpose that they have to begin with? Hindutva philosophy. They unite voters on the basis of Hindus, Hindu messaging, right? Now, the other thing that they are kind of very, they have the principal ideology is based on nationalism or Hindutva brand of nationalism. Remember, at one time, the Congress was the main nationalist party. From 1885 onwards until recently, the Congress stood for nationalism. Can the India alliance, along with Congress, recapture that nationalism, Gandhian nationalism, Periyar's nationalism, maybe that Ambedkar's nationalism, maybe that should become the common purpose. Next, we need, during when people go to vote, they need an election symbol. Can all the 28 parties come on a common election symbol, like for example Janata Party in 1977? In 1977, the Janata Party were five different parties. It had a left-wing party, CPIM, at one time, and it had a right-wing party. At that time, the Jansangh was part of the Janata Party. But they all contested on the symbol of Bharatiya Kranti Dal, BKD. Now, that helped. Why? Because the voters get thoroughly confused where they see these various symbols. In one constituency, they see a symbol of Samajwadi Party. In another constituency, they will see a symbol of RLD in UP. In Bihar, in one constituency, they will see the symbol of JDU. In another constituency, they will see, let's say, the Lalu's party, for example, RJD. So what is important is a common symbol. And I propose, this is my advice to the India coalition group, that if they take the most important symbol in the country out of these parties, the Congress party's symbol, hand, haath, that would ring with the voters easily. So that would be a great signal of a common purpose. But something in the long term, very important, is why don't the India members, the India group members, start unity efforts inside the party itself? Let me give you an example. Today, Russia and China are united in the world, everyone knows. But in India, the CPI, CPM, and CPIML are three different parties. Why? Why do we need three communist parties in India? The original reason why CPI and CPM had broken down at one time, divided into two different parties, was because the CPI used to be in a way allied to Soviet Union. Even the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. We have Russia. And the CPM, for example, tied its interest with China. The CPIML used to call itself Maoist, not China, but Mao Zedong. Now, Mao Zedong is also dead. All these three parties, which represents workers and peasants, let's say, must unite, send a signal that, look, united we stand, divided we fall. Now, that is something, if they begin, people will take them much more seriously than they are being taken right now. The SUCI, a socialist party, which at one time was part of the left bloc, that again must come together. Remember, 2004, when they all came together with UPA, I think the left bloc had 50 plus MPs. Never in the history of India has the left parties had so many, Lok Sabha MPs. So there is a lot of argument to be said for uniting. Similarly, I would argue, now that RJD and JDU have united in Bihar, why don't they unite under one party, one leader? Because once they do, then people will realize, wow, this is a serious alliance. Otherwise, in people's mind, oh, these parties are typical. They are parties of convenience. They come together when there is an election about to happen. And tomorrow, if, for example, let's take the worst case scenario, the India alliance, the India coalition, the India bloc loses against the BJP-led NDA, the probability of which is quite high, then they will all break back, accusing each other, "Oh, you did not help me, you did not help me." That defeats the very purpose of united we stand, divided we fall. Similarly, take Tamil Nadu for example. Why is it you have DMK, then you have MDMK, then you have PMK, and several other groups, all part of the India coalition. Now, why don't they start unity effort? And finally, the Congress. Look at the Congress. The top leaders of the India coalition, let's take Sharad Pawar. Let's take Mamta Banerjee. They are all different parties right now, right? Mamta Banerjee is Chief Minister of West Bengal. She is Trinamool. Sharad Pawar has his NCP. Now, all of them at some point left the Congress. Let the Congress start unity efforts seriously. Even if these unity efforts take time, it will go as a signal to the voter that here is a serious formation with seat sharing, common purpose, common ideology, as I chalked out, Gandhian philosophy, and common ambition to beat BJP with the nationalism, Gandhian nationalism of yesteryear. I think that would really help in this fight with this huge, humongous advantage that the BJP-led NDA has in 2024. If not, then I think they would be seen as party of convenience. So my final message to the India group for their 19th meeting with these, and there are several other lessons I can give, but in this short video, please think of these messages, come for a common ideology, common purpose, and a positive message, not only merely anti-BJP, a positive message. How will we change India? How will we make India better? How will we make India a great surging nation with extraordinary growth rate, remove poverty, remove inequality, a sort of India that used to be in the dreams of Indians, a great superpower in the future. Thanks very much.